Is there any physical evidence that the Gospel of John was written during the 1st century AD? Yes, there is. It's called the John Rylands Fragment, or simply P52, and it silenced the critics. Stay tuned to learn more.
Welcome to Faith Affirming Findings, a podcast dedicated to sharing with you
the incredible discoveries from the field of biblical archaeology.
These findings will strengthen your faith, affirm the historicity of Scripture, and provide you with unique insights into the culture and background of the Bible.
Now, here is your host, Associate Professor of Bible Exposition at Dallas Theological Seminary,
Dr. Paul Weaver.
Travel back with me to the year 1920. A man named Bernard Grenfell was acquiring ancient papyri from Oxyrhynchus, Egypt, on behalf of the John Rylands Library in Manchester, England. Oxyrhynchus, Egypt is about 125 miles south of Cairo, along the Nile River. By the way, I actually had a student who's from Oxyrhynchus, Egypt. Isn't that cool? Over 40,000 ancient papyri were discovered in that region. Most of them were ordinary records from everyday life in antiquity. But one fragment stood out, the John Rylands Papyrus, better known as P52. Even though P52 was acquired in 1920, its significance went unnoticed for 14 years. Then, in 1934, a young scholar named Colin Roberts, just 24 years old at the time, and a fellow at St. John's College, Oxford, was examining the unpublished papyri when something caught his eye. He saw Greek lines that looked familiar. They were from the Gospel of John. He had discovered what we now know as P52. It includes John chapter 18, verses 31 to 33 on one side, and John chapter 18, verses 37 to 38 on the other side. He published his discovery the very next year in 1935. So what is P52? Well, it's a fragment that is just 3.5 inches tall and 2.5 inches wide, about the size of a credit card. But don't let its size fool you. This discovery was monumental in significance. This is the earliest surviving manuscript of any portion of the New Testament, and it came from a codex, an ancient book with writing on both sides. It contains 7 lines on each side with 114 legible letters in total. Now let's talk about the date of this manuscript. Most scholars place it between AD 100 and 125. Some say 125 to 175, and a few suggest it could be from the late 1st century. It's the earliest known Christian codex. Why is this important? Christians weren't just using scrolls, they were already using books or codices to record scripture. As Colin Roberts wrote, and I quote, "Thanks to recent discoveries, we are coming to regard the codex as the normal vehicle for Christian literature, even in the 2nd century. Biblical scholar Bruce Metzger adds this powerful insight. Although the extent of the verses preserved is so slight, in one respect, this tiny scrap of papyrus possesses quite as much evidential value as would the complete codex. Then he offers this unforgettable illustration. Just as Robinson Crusoe, seeing but a single footprint in the sand, concluded that another human being with 2 feet was present on the island with him, so P52 proves the existence and use of the 4th gospel during the first half of the 2nd century in a provincial town along the Nile, far removed from its traditional place of composition, Ephesus in Asia Minor. If a copy of the Gospel of John reached all the way down to Oxyrhynchus, Egypt, then it had to have been written decades earlier, at least 30 to 50 years before. That places its origin back in the 1st century AD. And that completely debunks the old critical skeptical theory that John's Gospel was a 2nd century invention. A copy can't be made before the original. So what is the significance of this discovery? First, P52 is the oldest discovered manuscript of any portion of the New Testament in general and of John's Gospel in particular. Second, P52 helps us to better understand the transmission process, as well as to establish that Christians were using codices early to record and transmit the Holy Scriptures. Third, the discovery and dating of P52 also provides strong manuscript evidence that the Gospel of John was written early and distributed widely. And fourth, the discovery of P52 supports the Church's historic understanding that the Gospel of John was written by the Apostle John in the late 1st century. And today you can actually view this tiny but mighty manuscript at the John Rylands Library in Manchester, England. And that is your faith-affirming finding of the week. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast for more discoveries from the field of biblical archaeology that will affirm your faith in the historicity and reliability of Scripture.
Faith Affirming Findings podcast is a listener-supported podcast devoted to affirming your faith in the reliability of Scripture and illuminating your understanding of Scripture.
If you would like to help sponsor the Faith Affirming Finding podcast,
You can make a tax-deductible donation of any amount, large or small,
at faithaffirmingfindings.com. That's faithaffirmingfindings.com and click on the Give tab.
We hope you'll join us again next week for another exciting faith-affirming finding.